Hey, good morning, everybody out there in Ontraland. It's Ken Colwood from ClickFix.io coming at you with another Freebie Friday. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different because it's actually inspired by a real world project that we helped out one of our good friends, Katherine Mackenzie-Smith, over there in Australia, get taken care of. What Katherine wanted to do is she wanted to be able to have a timer block on her page that would count down to a specific date. She's going for kind of a evergreen deadline funnel here, and she wanted to be able to pass that same timer, the same date, the same deadline date from the sales page all the way over to her checkout page, so that that sense of FOMO and the sense of a special limited offer carried over from one page to the next. So in order to do that, we had to go ahead and make use of one of the shortcodes that, admittedly, even for me at the very beginning when the team came up with this, I didn't really see the use for it, right? And that is our submit shortcode. So let's jump into the editor and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So here we are in the editor, and we set things up with the timer the way we normally do, right? So we put the timer sometime far in the future. In this case, I believe we set it to 2109. So even if Katherine's business is thriving, she probably won't be around to need to update it. So it'll be perfectly fine, and that just gives the margin for our shortcodes to do their work. A lot of people, this is just a sidebar here, but a lot of people, when they're using our timer shortcodes, they forget to put the date in the future. And so when that date comes up, let's say, for example, right now it is December the 9th, 2021. So let's say, for example, I had this timer set to noon today. Right? So my shortcode, as I'm testing it, because it's only 10:47, when I'm testing it, it would work. But as soon as I published it, went away and just let it do its thing, as soon as noon came about, my timer would no longer work because Ontraport would say this date has already passed. And so the timer would always be set to 0 no matter what we're trying to do to override it. So to get around that, when you are using the timer shortcode, always make sure you put it way far in the future because we're going to override that with the shortcode anyway. So that's why I put it out to 2109. All right. So we have our timer set up. In her particular case, she wanted it to set up to only be shown if there was a timer variable in the URL. Very smart. That means that she can use this page either as part of a deadline funnel or just in general without having to create multiple pages for things. She can use the same one. Okay. So she set all that up, did everything right. Perfect. Now, what we ran into is that we had to figure out, okay, now how do we make it so that the exact same time will show up on both the actual checkout page as well as or on the sales page as well as the checkout page. And so the solution we came up with was to go ahead and use an anchor link, right? And we're going to use our if anchor shortcode to then tell the system, all right, if anybody clicks on any of these buttons, what we actually want you to do is we want you to go ahead and submit a hidden form, which we have here at the bottom of the page. And what this hidden form is doing is it's going to grab the information from the URL to go ahead and fill out this field here, right? And so this is the deadline, basically, for the person to be able to check out properly. It's going to fill in the deadline here, and it's going to grab their email, and it's going to fill out their email. And then it's going to submit the form. So that way on the next page, we're going to append the deadline date to the URL again, and the countdown should coincide. Okay, so if that sounded like a mouthful, it was, but it's actually a lot simpler than it sounds. So all we had to do is we had to come into settings, custom code here, and we have to tell the system that what we want to do is we want to hide that bottom block. Right. We set the timer to coincide with the parameter in the URL called timer, right? And we're using a Unix code for that. And that's just the official computer time, if you will. Then we're telling it to fill the email field with the URL parameter email or email, depending on how somebody wrote it, because all of her traffic is coming from her list. And so she's able to control the link that gets sent along. And the link that she's going to send is going to look something like the one you see here at the top, or maybe can't, let's go ahead and just throw that into a text file here. All right, so the link is going to look like this. All right, so it's basically the URL of the page, and then it's a question mark, email equals my agency email here, and then the timer equals the actual date that I want the time to be counting down to. This particular time is January 1st, 2022 at midnight. So that's why you see the 22 days here. All right. So this is the link that will be sent in the email. And when somebody gets to that page, it's going to grab the email, put it into the email field. It's going to grab the timer value. So that is the value here at the end, this number here. It's going to grab that and it's going to put it into the deadline field, which you saw there at the bottom. And then we're telling the system, if somebody clicks on a button and it goes to this anchor open.form, it's going to submit the block with the hidden fields, okay, which is this block down here. And the other thing we did here is we just went ahead and on the form settings, we said, okay, when this form gets submitted, we want you to go to this URL, which is the checkout form, and we want you to add this parameter of timer, and we want you to fill it with the merge field of the deadline date in Unix style, right? And the way we have Unix is we know that if I go search for this field, let's say it's called 7-day invitation. When it pops up, I say, okay, I don't want to select time zones or any of that. I don't need any offsets, but what I do need to do is we need to call this a Unix timestamp, right? And so that is what you saw there at the end of the URL, all right? So that's in the form settings, and that's exactly what we see here, right? So once we have all that set up, we went ahead and published it, and we got to this page here. So I'm on this page, their email, I use the email here because what this does is it makes sure that no empty record is being created when that form gets submitted. If you submit a form without an email address, it'll create an empty contact record, and that just gets messy in the back end. So this ties that click to that person's contact record. Technically it ties the click, but then also you would then be able to further retarget people, because you'd be able to say anybody who submits the form on this page, which would obviously be only people who are who have been sent here via email. And so you'd be able to say, you know, if somebody submits the form, or in other words, if somebody clicks the join button, then you can send them a series of abandoned cart emails, for example, because now they're more than just interested in opening the email. Now they've shown interest in actually getting a membership, but maybe they don't actually go all the way through with it, right? So theoretically, when I click on this button, what it's going to do, this value here, my email, and this value here, the Unix timestamp, are already in the hidden form. So theoretically, when I click this button, it should basically take me over to the checkout page. And it should be somewhere in the 22 days, 13 hours, and 5 minutes and something seconds by the time I click the button. All right. This processing time depends on where you are in the world. Some places faster, some places slower. But as you can see, it went ahead and carried over the actual final end date to the checkout form. And we do, in fact, have the timer that is synced with the sales page. So that's it. Nothing more to it. As I said, the actual nitty gritty nuts and bolts of it are mostly in the initial setup, where we're putting together a hidden field, a form inside of a hidden block. That form has an email, and it has in this case, it has the Unix timestamp of the deadline date, and we just tell the system, we tell the page that anytime somebody clicks a button and this is the link that button goes to, what we actually want it to do is to submit that hidden form. Now, besides being able to pull deadlines from one page to another, the submit variable is also very useful in different contexts, like using multi-step forms, or being able to use instead of creating multi-step forms in different blocks, you can create them with columns, and you would use the submit shortcode to go ahead and pull off some magic there. So you're not having to duplicate a bunch of blocks. There are a ton of different uses for the submit shortcode. And as always, if you jump over to our docs, you can go ahead and take a look at some more of those use cases, and you'll see that the submit shortcode is actually used quite a few times in different places. And this just kind of gives you a plain text explanation of what it all does, right? If you do Command F or Control F and you do submit, you can see that there are some other things that we do with the submit shortcode as well. Okay. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns, or this wasn't perfectly clear, please drop them below and I'll shoot another video, a follow-up video with some more use cases. Or if you have a use case that you think might fit into the submit shortcode or any of the other shortcodes that we have and you'd like to see an explanation of how to get it working, just let us know below and we'll get you taken care of as soon as possible.